Alright, our cell notes. These are going to be split into two parts because they are a longer section of notes. Our first section, we're going to talk about the cell theory and part of your organelles. In the second set, you will talk about the rest of the organelles and get the notes on that. Our key concept, we're going to talk about how cells are the basic unit of life.
Yep, cells are the smallest basic unit that can perform the tasks necessary for life. How we learned about cells is a very interesting story. We're not going to go too far in depth about it. All these old men at the bottom of the screen are very important contributors to the cell theory. They span from Englishmen, German, and I think Russian, right? I don't know. From several different countries, we learned piece by piece the cell theory. So how did we learn about them? Well, as the technology for microscopes increased, really as they were discovered, people got really excited about microscopes and liked to look at lots of things underneath the scope, underneath the microscope. And Hooke is credited with with the term cell because he was looking at a very thin slice of cork and saw these box-like shapes that reminded him of the cells that monks slept in. Not like prison cell, but like monks' cell. Yeah, I like Hooke. He's probably my favorite because it sounds like Captain Hook.
Reminds me of hookworms.
That's depressing. Leeuwenhoek, and Schleiden and Schwann were all important in discovering that cells were in all animals and plants, not just, one type of animal, but that all kinds of animals had cells and that they looked different from the plant cells. And then Virchow, or however you say his name, he is very important. He came along a little bit later than the rest of these guys and claimed that cells come from pre-existing cells. The thought before was that cells just kind of magically appeared out of nowhere. Anything you want to add about the history?
Nope.
About sums it up. So, many scientists contributed to the cell theory. As more was learned about the microscopes, as that technology was improved, we were able to see more and more details, smaller and smaller things. Cell theory is a unifying concept of biology, which means it kind of ties everything together since it is the smallest basic building block for life. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
And in our cell theory, we have three basic principles. The first one is that all organisms are made of cells. The second is all existing cells are produced by other living cells, meaning they have to come from some other cell. They cannot spontaneously exist. And that the cell is the most basic unit of life.
Yep.
Seems obvious.
Yep. Well, to us.
Yeah.
Now.
Mind-blowing to them.
Yes. Okay, so all cells share certain characteristics. First of all, cells tend to be microscopic. That means you need a microscope to see a cell. Got it? Okay, next, all cells are enclosed by a membrane, and all cells are filled with cytoplasm. So you can see in this picture here, your cell membrane is pointing to this pinkish thing here. Okay, cytoplasm is the jelly-like stuff inside. Okay? So you're looking here at a bacterium. That's bacteria. That's stuff that makes you sick.
Or digest things.
Yeah.
Okay, we have two types of cells. We have eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells tend to have, or they will have a nucleus. They also have membrane-bound organelles. So,
very, very important. Sorry.
It's okay. So remember, nucleus and membrane-bound organelles, it is a eukaryotic cell.
Yep. If you were to see this slide, or this picture here, and it didn't tell you that it was eukaryotic, you should know right off the bat because it's got this nucleus, and it has some membrane-bound organelles, these weird-looking things here.
Then our prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus, and they do not have membrane-bound organelles. and that would be at the bottom of your screen. You would see where it says prokaryotic, and it does not have a nucleus, and you would see that the organelles inside are lacking, and they are lacking membranes therefore.
Yep. Okay, cell theory. The cytoplasm is the region of the cell within the membrane that includes the fluid, the cytoskeleton, and all the organelles except for the nucleus. Okay, it is made up of various membrane-covered organelles and cytosol.
The cytoskeleton has many functions. In the cytoplasm, many structures are suspended in a system of microscopic fibers called the cytoskeleton. The purpose of a cytoskeleton is it supports and shapes the cell. It helps position and transport organelles. It provides strength. It assists in cell division and aids in cell movement. And that's how old I am. They didn't even talk about this back when I was in biology.
You are old.
I know.
So I like here talking about cell division because this is one that hopefully you guys remember learning about mitosis. And you had these chromosomes here, and then you had these funky little strands. Okay, the strands are cytoskeleton. Pretty cool.
Little spider web looking things that were on it.
Yep, it's what pulled those apart so that you had the V looking things. I always liked this part.
So if your teachers had you make that thing with your fingers where you did the different stages, your fingers were representing the cytoskeleton.
Cool. I never did the finger.
Really? It's fun. I'll show it sometime. It's fun. They're wondering what the heck we're talking about too. You'll see it later. Okay, next we have our nucleus, and these are all organelles that are going to be involved in making and processing proteins. Our nucleus is what stores our genetic information. It is the largest and most visible organelle in a eukaryotic cell. The nucleus also stores DNA that contains information that tells the cell how to make all of the proteins and controls cell function. The nucleus is covered by a double membrane called the nuclear envelope, which lets some materials pass through.
Yep. I don't really have anything to add.
It's the brain.
Yeah. There we go. Alright, so several organelles are involved in making and processing proteins. The nucleus is where you find the basic genetic information that is going to tell these different organelles the order of the amino acids, because if you remember, their monomer is an amino acid, and you get different proteins depending on the different way that you string all those amino acids together. So where does this all take place? Well, that's where the endoplasmic reticulum is so important. Okay, it says up here on the screen, it says the endoplasmic reticulum is a system of membranous tubules and sacs in eukaryotic cells that function as a path along which molecules move from one part of the cell to another. The endoplasmic reticulum can be characterized visually as being smooth or rough. Okay, so just taking a look at this picture here, which do you think is smooth and which do you think is rough?
The one that looks like a pretzel is the rough.
This one?
Yeah, with salt on it. Pretzel with salt.
Okay, so all those little dots that you see, those are ribosomes on there, which we'll get to, I think, the next slide.
And then the pretty one.
Oh, yes, the pretty one is the smooth ER, because it's smooth. Okay, let's see, what else do they tell us about smooth?
That's basically
smooth, lacks ribosomes, rough, has them, is studded with them.
Alright, and then with our ribosomes link amino acids to form proteins. They're found in the cytoplasm. They're attached to the rough ER, and it makes the proteins based on the DNA's instructions.
Yep, there's a really cool video that hopefully we can show to you in class. That shows you basically how that DNA ends up making proteins. Okay, so like I said before, the ribosomes link those amino acids together, and depending on how they're linked together, that is going to determine the protein.
Go two more, because in that section.
Dos más. Okay.
Okay, then we have vesicles. They are membrane-bound sacs that hold materials. It's basically all you guys need to know about vesicles.
Yep.
Just remember that they just hold materials.
I like to think of them as vehicles because it looks similar. So they're membrane-bound sacs that hold materials that help transport materials from one place to another in a cell, just like you get in a vehicle to transport you from one place to another.
And our last one, Golgi apparatus. That's going to be our last one for this set of notes. You'll hear it, Golgi apparatus, Golgi body, Golgi complex. If it's Golgi anything, it's the same thing. They just have different names for it. I don't really know why. Do you know why?
No.
No. I learned it as Golgi body, but Golgi apparatus, Golgi complex you'll hear also. It helps make and package materials to be transported out of the cell. Lipids and proteins from the endoplasmic reticulum are delivered to the Golgi apparatus, where they are modified for different functions, and this instructions would then come from, what do you think? Nucleus. Okay, their final products are enclosed in a piece of the Golgi apparatus's membrane that pinches off to form a small compartment. This small compartment transports its content to other parts of the cell or outside the cell.
Yep, so basically what you need to know is that we've got this, the DNA, everything inside the nucleus, which is going to give us our genetic, basically, blueprint for what kind of protein we're going to make. And then it goes from the nucleus to the ER, and then it goes from the ER to the Golgi.
They're kind of like the post office.
Yeah, Golgi, whatever you're going to call it. I'll just leave it with Golgi. And then from the Golgi, they go... They go where... What the... Here? Where? What is going on? Wherever...
They're programmed. Wherever they're supposed to.
Wherever they need to.
Yep, which can be another part of the cell or outside of the cell.
Yay! That's the end.
So they're like the post office.
Yep.
All right, your next set of notes, we will conclude talking about the different organelles, but this sums up the organelles that are in charge of making and processing proteins. See you later.
Bye.
Adios.
Hasta luego.
I ran out of
Auf Wiedersehen.
Oh, I don't know the
Ciao.
other ones.
Sayonara.
Wow.